right, everybody, welcome back to Lowbow Spark. Today, I have a very special friend, actually, on here. Her name is Kate, and we met at a neurodivergent conference, which we'll get into that later. But she helped me immensely over the course of that conference, and I will tell you this right now: she's one of the best people I've ever met. Kate, how are you?
I'm all right. That's an intense welcoming, so I
Yes.
appreciate it. It's a high standard I'm gonna have to live up to,
Nope.
just
Nope.
because you know a lot of people. You know what I'm saying?
I know some people, but what I will ask you in this podcast is my favorite question to ask. What is your neurodivergent journey? What is your ADHD journey? And you also have autism, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so both. You are free to say whatever the fuck you want. Curse words thrown out the fucking window. I doesn't matter to me. I just want to know more about you. So
All right.
tell whatever story you want.
Well, I think my childhood story will look kind of familiar to a lot of narratives I see. A little bit of the gifted and talented, you know, smart, but a little bit challenging in the classroom, right? Bored easily, big doodler, right? Like I was struggling making eye contact. I would doodle all over the paper, and that was, back in the 90s, a challenge, right?
Right.
It was a coin flip, really, whether the teacher would recognize that I was bright and needed to be challenged, or whether I was obstinate and inattentive. Um, so it really was like a 50-50 all the way through high school. I had a little sister that was 2 years younger than me that my parents were always like, teacher, or we'll take burn a bridge this year. So we'll have to see how it goes.
Right. Eh,
Um,
Were you diagnosed at an early age, or was it more?
I
Uh,
think that's a great question. Before I went to the neurodivergence where we met, I would have said I was diagnosed late. I was diagnosed at 22, right when I graduated undergrad.
okay,
And I thought that was pretty late. I felt like that was pretty late at the
it
time.
is.
Sure. And that was also, 18 years ago, where,
Jesus.
when I talk to women these days now, and at the conference, we learned that, a vast majority of women are diagnosed with ADHD after they have children.
Wow.
That's
Because
a milestone where, you know,
wow.
they find that your ability to have these, what I call, like, gone days, or days where you have to, like, take care of yourself or put your needs first, or where you can't get up and function the way you ought to, right? Executive function challenges, you can't afford that when you have a kid. So all of a sudden,
Wow.
your ability to just self-care and stay in bed when you are struggling to executive function is out the window when a baby's screaming at you. And that's really where, for a lot of women, the rubber meets the road, right?
Yeah.
Um, so what I heard at the conference was, wow, that's so early, right? This would have been 2006. Um,
See, to me, that's
so
late. That's a late.
right. Like I say all the time, as soon as I got diagnosed, which I remember, my West Michigan doctor, who used to be a GP and then got diagnosed late in life. He was in his 70s by the time I went and saw him. Um, he had just recently got diagnosed, so was specializing in that. And
Interesting.
he ran this test. So I go in his office, and there's a big, old gateway sitting at a table, and there's a blinking dot on a screen,
Oh
and
my God.
you need to hit a space bar, you see, every time the
That's
dot
the
appears.
same thing that I had to do when I was 5 years old. I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm gonna
No,
interrupt.
exactly.
I have ADHD, but like when they gave me that fucking test, I was like, you think I don't recognize that someone opens the door in the background, and if I turn my head this way, then all of a sudden I'm distractible? Are you fucking out of your mind? Come on. Like, we're not children, right?
Yep.
Like,
And I remember walking out of that test thinking I aced it. I said to my mom, gosh, this was easy. You time it after a while, and the dot shows up every 5 seconds.
right.
So you just and then the doctor said, not at all. You know, it was random and you have ADHD. Like
And
your
speak,
patience, your patience to follow the dot for even 24 seconds. You were already trying to find a mental shortcut
yeah,
to not solve this puzzle.
but why are shortcuts bad? Like,
They're not always bad. They're situational dependent, right? It's what
that's a good point.
makes,
That's a
you
really good
know,
point, actually.
my career, a lot of it has existed in operations, and I was a chief of staff for a long time.
Nice.
So finding shortcuts is pretty essential there, right? You'll find a lot of us
Yeah.
really good at defining a process and figuring out which parts of the process are essential and which parts are waste, because we're not going to do any of the bullshit, right? We're going to be like, once we understand the process, we're going to streamline the shit out of it for you, because I swear to you, we're not going to do anything that isn't necessary.
Did I mention that I really love you? Actually, like that comment is exactly like my life. I want to circle back to your upbringing, though. We're gonna go on tangents. That's just what's gonna happen.
That
So,
sounds great.
right. So your upbringing before you were 22 years old and got diagnosed, what was? Did you recognize you were a little bit different, or how did that play
Oh,
out?
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think it was really difficult. I grew up in West Michigan, a pretty socially conservative place. My parents, the concept of popularity was a easy one to execute on.
Right.
They were social. I grew up in sort of a fairly affluent country club existence. There was
Cool.
a ton
Same
of,
here.
social norms that one ought to observe to fit in, right? And I
Yeah,
seem to
I
be
get that.
breaking all of them.
Good for you.
And despite me growing up in a community full of kids, I managed to have, no friends at all for the longest time, right? And
Oh,
I'd go into
yeah.
the lunchroom and sit with a group of girls and immediately know, whoa, I'm not supposed to be here, right? Reading the body language, see an eye contact fade, and then I what I wanted out of that exchange was a post-mortem, right? Like I would say, clearly I'm not supposed to sit here. Could someone explain to me what just happened? Because you're not happy with me. And I'd just like to take some notes to figure out, what went wrong in this social exchange.
Yeah, but
And that turns out to not be something you get to do with middle school
because my
girls.
mom said, I'm not going to agree with you on 90% of like what you do or what you say, but don't
Mhm.
worry about that. Just be resilient. That's it.
Yeah.
Just be resilient. Focus on what you want, and you can't fail. Like,
Yeah. That is what my parents, if you ask my parents what my biggest strength is, I think resilience would be the word that they would use.
there we go.
And
That's my whole thing is resiliency is what ADHD people have to have, and they naturally have it. So, like, whether it's your parents telling you this or my
yep.
parents encouraging me or whatever, we stick to what we fucking believe. That's it. That is the most
Yeah.
powerful trait any human being can have.
Yeah.
So fuck the goddamn
Exactly.
dishes. God damn it. Sorry.
No, I hear what you're saying. Like but the fire in your belly that comes from ADHD, right? Like
yeah.
you gotta find a way to think to see the good in that. You gotta
Yeah.
find a way.
Yeah.
I struggled, especially after I get diagnosed with autism at 27. A lot of the stereotypes that I had been familiar with were, specific special interests, right?
Right.
Being very good at math was like the obvious one, but, having a specific subject matter where you kind of rat hole on that all the time.
Right.
Um, but then I realized, over time that what I was obsessed with was markets. That's what made me a good economist for a while. It's
Nice.
why in middle school, every time I walked into, a friend's house, I'd let them know exactly what their Beanie Baby collection was worth, and let them know that I could move
I,
it on eBay. Hey buddy,
I,
that Tabasco's worth $500. Don't take that tag off, and I'll take 10%. I'll take 10%.
so you know how to play the game of business.
I
essentially.
do. And it's my special interest is markets and how that works. My parents thought I was gonna, they said, hey, if you take 2 years of horseback riding lessons, we'll get you a horse. And I didn't particularly like the lessons, but I did love tracking horse prices in the local newspaper.
Oh, shit. Okay, what's funny about that is my wife owns two horses right now, and I don't know what goes into that. It's this like dressage, or is it barrel racing, or is it leaping the things? I'm like, I don't get it, but all I can tell you is that I will be there if you want me to just come out there and hang out with the horses. Like, that's fine.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand it, but I still do it. And that's an amazing thing that you just described is basically, I don't think a lot of people trust ADHD or autistic people or a combination of both to get the fucking job done. You
I
do.
think I know what you're saying. Yeah. Um, I
And
think,
that's it. Like when you walked up after that conference, you just had that look in your eye like, I'm going to fix this. I'm going to fix this. I'm like, that's my girl right there. Like that's the one I want to talk to.
right. And that's the thing
But
with ADHD people is when we're passionate about something, there's nothing in our way. We're going to be a steam engine, right? You want,
correct.
you know, where you're going to struggle. And, this is why when I was 22, my first job was at IBM and it was like test scripts for SEP and like Excel spreadsheets tracking financials. And I was bored as hell. I was so bored. I couldn't make myself, I would turn on my computer and it would feel excruciating. And all of a
Yeah.
sudden, for the first time, I couldn't do work. I couldn't figure out why it
Wow.
was functionally impossible.
For the
Um,
first time, I couldn't do work. That, Jesus, do I resonate with that?
right. And figured out a couple things. One, I gotta care about my job. It's not enough to, of course I'm medicated. Of course I understand my dopamine burst now, but that's not enough. I also gotta care about what I'm doing. It's I need to be in front of people. I need to be working on
Me
a
too.
team. I need to feel emotionally attached to the work. It's got to feel mission oriented. It's got to feel urgent,
Yeah.
right?
Oh God. Oh God. Yes. It has to
Yeah.
be an immediate thing. Like, if it's
I
not
swear to
immediate,
God, if you give me a project and say I'll see you in a month, I will start working on it 29 days from now.
right, fucking done.
Yeah.
Like, but it will be at the end of the day better than anyone else that spent the 29 days doing it.
Oh yeah. And I find that the way I like to think about this, because sometimes I'll like get up first thing in the morning at like 5:30 and I'll sit down and write an email I've been worried about for, a week. And I'll realize that my brain works like a million tabs on it. And, I'll run it as a sub process, right? I'll be thinking about it a little bit in the background of some stuff for a while. And then all of a sudden I'll sit down and, bang out the email and I'll be like, oh, I just did that in 5 minutes. No, you did that
Yeah,
probably in 300
I
minutes.
yeah, but you do things faster than most. It's
Right.
basically it's just a different style. It's some
Yep.
people have to prepare for 29 days. You have to prepare for 3 hours when it's a crisis moment. And then your result is better than that 29 days of preparation from the other person because they go back and forth of what's going to work. We know what's going to
Right.
fucking work. So we goddamn just do it when it matters.
Decisiveness. That's right.
Right. Yeah.
It is decisive. You know what I mean? There's going to be no waffling when I have to make a decision and I'll support that decision then. I'm ready to defend it. I'm ready to tell you why it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And I'm ready to, it doesn't have to come from my mouth, right? Because I'm such a team player. Like if I know, I've worked at plenty of tech companies where this is not the packaging for the big idea. And I'll find the right face for the idea and make
That's something.
sure to sell it.
Uh, I, that's something I love so much about you is that you are a team player. You genuinely care about the people that are putting forth effort, and
That's
that
right.
is so cool. But circling back again to to your story, so in high school, what was high school like uh, for you in terms of like I know you explained like I'd go to lunch. That was middle school. What was high school
Yeah,
like?
I played a couple sports,
Okay.
so tennis and golf, and I was pretty good at it. But I would not describe myself as social on
Okay.
those teams, right? The funny story is I was a pretty good tennis player. And my senior year was, all state uh, first doubles. And my partner, who was 2 years younger than me, she was over 6 foot tall, 200 pounds, and had a 125 mile an hour first serve.
Right.
I loved playing with her, and we were undefeated, right? We
Awesome.
were having a great time. Um, but I was intense.
Yeah.
I was a really intense person. I wanted to win so bad, and it was so important to me. And one day after practice, I heard my partner talking to the coach about how she'd maybe like to explore a partner change. And
That is
I
a little
told
crazy.
this story into my late 20s of you got to be out of her mind.
Uh,
Who, who would want to switch partners when you're like, how crazy is that? And then
I would just say what a bitch. I mean, like
No,
that's
she was, the thing is, not a bitch. She was a delight, a
okay. All right.
lovely person.
I'll edit that
You
out.
know,
I'll edit that out for
you,
the
you, you
podcast.
you can keep it. But here was the realization when I started to work on all of my autism and
Yeah.
ADHD. She wanted to have a good time. She knew we weren't, I played in the practice team at Michigan State. Like, she knew she wasn't going to go pro in tennis.
Right.
We were just there to have a good time, and I was not a good time.
God, if I had a nickel for every time I've heard that,
Yeah.
because I, it's the same with me. Like I just anything I do, I want to win. I want to be the
Yep.
best. Like this and that and the other. What is it in our brains, ADHD and autism wise? And I'm just ADHD. I don't have autism that I know about, but you're both. What is it about this quote disorder that makes us want to win so bad in every single thing we do? And then
I think
like
it's a couple of things. The intensity, right? Like think about how we perform when there's a sense of urgency. That's
right,
our best, right? Like it's what made me a great chief of staff recently is like if I can fight 17 fires at the same time, I'm having a great day,
no shit, right, right.
right?
That's that's fun to do.
But my nervous system, like I want to play every tennis match like we are playing for, the million
Wimbledon,
dollar check at Wimbledon.
yeah,
And we weren't. We were in Kentwood, Michigan.
but in your mind,
Um,
you were at
and
Wimbledon in the
right,
finals, and that's every single thing that like when I was watching my favorite basketball team, I can't say the name on the podcast, but uh, when I was watching them, like I feel like I'm playing, even if I'm a
right.
fan. I feel like I'm playing in the game, and that is something that I don't think a lot of people understand. Is if you're not neurodivergent, you don't have ADHD or don't have autism, you can't understand what it's like to feel as if you are doing these things when you're actually not, but you feel the same emotion from what the team that you love is doing because we're so goddamn passionate about fucking everything.
Right.
So, like,
Yeah, as soon as I emotionally invest, like you've got me forever, right?
yeah,
Like as soon
exactly.
as you're right, I'm gonna figure out a way to make it better. And
Yeah,
the other thing about us is like I've been receiving critical feedback my entire life, right? I call pretty much everything, I can come out of a meeting and think about it as the ride home from the game, right?
I love
And
that.
it used to
I love that.
be, one of my parents sitting in the driver's seat giving it to me, but now I can run through that myself. For
I love that.
every social interaction, I'm thinking, what could I have done differently there? Like, I saw somebody roll their eyes. What was that about? And I'm really like piecing it together for myself, like continuous improvement style.
Okay.
Um,
So I am going to throw you for a little bit of a loop here in terms of the next question.
all
You
right,
spoke of social anxiety. Can
sure.
you give whoever's listening to this an idea of Austin? and how good that dinner was, how much fun it was to watch a game together, like all that, because I think people need to hear like life can be fun too. Like you could meet somebody that just comes into your life and all of a sudden changes it forever.
Absolutely. Yeah, the dinner was great, right? And
Yeah,
how fun was it to find, a room full of people with the same neurotype?
yeah.
And that's how I like to think about, us is not a disorder, it's a neurotype,
Okay.
right?
Awesome. I like that.
It feels really important right now in this political landscape to, this is not a disease we're hunting for the cure, right? Like
Right.
it's genetic, it's hereditary, and it's a neurotype that has its advantages, has its struggles, but there's nothing wrong with us.
Correct. I love that.
And
Be-
and so
I
we're
love
not
that.
hunting for a cure. We are, we're on a different wavelength sometimes, but we contribute distinctly to the social fabric, and I think that's worth talking about.
It's
But
way
that
above
dinner
that.
was great, right? Like I am used
That
to,
was that,
right?
and
It was it
I'm
was
not trying to promote the dinner. I'm just trying to
no, you
promote
should
like
you should prepare the
the
dinner. What was
camaraderie of that.
yeah.
Like it was
I
you
think
showed up at the house and then I was like, that's my new best friend right there. Kate is my new friend right there.
and that's also very ADHD, right? Like very
Yeah,
much like we're like connection. Like here's my stuff. How is your stuff? And then all
but
of a
that's
sudden
right. That's
right.
good. That's a good thing.
Oh, absolutely. I think one of my consulting jobs, I was in a meeting with one of my clients, and for the first 30 minutes, we covered six topics. We made four decisions, and then we discovered that both of us had ADHD. And
Right.
I was like, yep, this makes sense. And we were then, he's my closest client for the next years. I was like, did we just figure out who we are together?
Right.
We just accomplished
That's amazing.
everything and then circled back and when were you diagnosed and recognize that in each other. And it allows you to unmask completely. And I consider myself a pretty high masker. I think when you're again growing up in West Michigan, where, this is the packaging, but you need to present as sort of this,
Right.
attentive,
Facade. Yeah.
um, obedient, right?
It's
Socially
the same
aware.
thing. It's the same thing in Florida. I mean, it's like you
Yeah,
got to present yourself as a certain person at this place, at this country club, at this time, and all this kind of stuff. At
right.
this church, at this, you know what? Fuck all of that. Like,
Yeah, and
I that
it's tough, right? Because, especially for me, because, not only was I not, being a student correctly, but I was girling incorrectly.
oh
It was like,
Jesus, that's
it was like girls don't do the following things, right? Like,
right.
because, back when I was in high school, maybe boys bouncing off the walls, they're the ones getting diagnosed, the ones
Well,
showing
of course,
hyperactivity.
because that's the problem is that like they diagnose 12-year-old boys with ADHD because they can't sit still in class. Well, maybe your class is fucking boring and they don't have it. But then if the girl says, like, hey, by the way, I need some help here, whatever, it's like, oh, no, no, just get better. Just focus more. Just do this. And I'm like, because I'm the quintessential ADHD person. Like, I bounce off the walls or whatever. It's easy to diagnose me. It's not easy to diagnose a girl that feels like me internally and can't externally present what she's feeling. That's a
Yeah,
big
or
thing.
had I didn't have I
It,
knew that I was, different and that I
right.
operated differently and that like I would have this, I'd have exchanges where I'd get on really great with a girl or a group of girls because they'd think I was funny. And then I would be re-entered and they'd be like, come over to my party. And then I would bomb
Right.
there completely. Right. And be like, wait, where was the pretty girl that was making fun of our teacher in the back of the class? I loved that one.
You just needed an escape route. That's like you just needed an ability to know that you could go to a party with a bunch of your girlfriends and leave and have them not judge you. And that's
Well, just for the record, I still don't have a bunch of girlfriends, right? Like that was a metric that, it's put in front of you when you're younger, right? Like you want a big birthday party, you
Yeah.
want to go to
No, I
prom
agree
with a
with that.
huge group of people. And, I think, one of my ADHD coaches early on said, like, I don't like to hang out with 8 women. If I'm in a group of 8 women, I like 2 of those women top.
Okay, that's kind of
I'm
funny.
tolerating the other 6. And that continues to be true, right? Like when I bond with somebody, I'm like, I want you to get all my attention.
Yeah.
Um,
I just I think that it's that's kind of sad to me in a certain way because it's like I have nothing but like genuine care for your personality and how you approach things in life. Like I and I honestly I am popular with friends and all that. How the fuck does anyone meet Kate and say I don't like this human being like that
well, the
doesn't
other role is girls. Let me take you back to a big rule I've since learned about girls. Like they want you to lie to them a lot of the time.
well, it's because they're all jealous of each other and it gets
Yeah,
convoluted
it's
and all this kind
scary.
of
But I'm
stuff.
saying, like,
Right.
I was not
But
perceiving any of that. So if someone asked me the truth, like, what do you like? What do you think of my haircut? What do you think about this dress? Like, I'd be like, it's ugly. I don't like it. You should change it, and then be sort of floored with the reaction. Then I was in
the
trouble with 6 girls because I was mean to Shelly.
oh
Like, and
Jesus.
I was like, I don't. Was I
That's
mean?
just so it's so fake. That's such a fake thing for
But
people to like
beyond
if they
calling it fake, it's a social norm, is what it is. There are rules, and I have since
and the
learned the
social norm
rules.
is fake. The,
It's a little fake, but the thing is, there are times
the,
and code switching. Many of us do it. There's a racial component to that, where like code
right,
switching. So many different people have to do it in different social situations. That I think if it
right.
was explained to me that way earlier, like when you're in a group of like nervous girls, you got to code switch and be just like polite and attentive and middle of the road. And that's the version of you that shows up there.
That's a great point. I never took that advice because a lot of my friends told me like you got to be cordial in these scenarios, and I'm like, I'm fucking wearing a Dumb and Dumber tux to prom. Okay, that's what I'm
That's
doing.
why my
Fuck
that's why
you.
my friends were boys. That's why my friends were boys because they thought it was funny
That's
when
why
I
we get
tell them the
along
truth,
so
right?
well. Probably is.
Right? Is that like I would say something, they'd be like, "That's weird and funny." Like
Yeah.
they being direct is not a challenge there, right? Like
Right.
it's
It-
it's not I'm
oh,
not scary. Like
that's such a key point, though, is being direct. So
yeah,
with ADHD and autism, you don't have that like ability to calm yourself down and say what is quote appropriate. You just fucking say it. It's the impulsive thing. But my question is, wouldn't you want someone like that in your life rather than the person that just caters to you? Don't you want the brutal fucking honesty?
right. I mean, I think so. I'm a great friend.
Yeah, you absolutely are. So, okay, now I'm getting real pumped up. So I want to circle back again to so college. You went through college. You obviously did well. I failed out of college because I just hated it. But you went through college. You did well.
I changed
You have a
majors
husband. You
six
have
times,
kids.
you know.
You have a great life. Like you've kind of done really well.
In some
How?
ways, yeah. I think and it's interesting to say I've done well. I don't know that that is something I would say about myself. Again, I'm
Well,
not a,
you're gonna say it by the end of this episode. I can guarantee you that right now. So
yeah,
yeah,
I'm not a soul at rest, right? So I'm hungry and I want to do better. I want to do more.
yeah,
The fighting that boredom is like, it's an ongoing struggle, right? Like, what am I for? How do I be useful?
right,
How do I chase my greatest best purpose? Like for other people, you know, these are things that you say, but for me, it's like whether I function or not. It's I had a couple
yeah.
jobs
God,
or
that's
tech
so.
early on. right? And I
Yeah.
was so bored because I was like, what are we doing? Are we just a cog in the wheel here? Are we part of the process? Or, what if we eliminated our entire department? Wouldn't that be a fun intellectual exercise to just figure out if we all evaporated tomorrow, what would be different? And that
I
was
love
pretty
that.
polarizing as a personality type. And I had a good buddy, roll through my office and he said, Kaitlyn, I don't know why you're so worked up. At the end of the day, we're just paper pushers. And I was like, I can't picture a worse thing that you could have said to me.
Right. But that's the whole problem is it's like what you said is actually accurate. It's like, what if we just get rid of this department, that department, whatever the fuck it is, to get better? You're always striving for the next thing. You're always striving for the next thing. That is why boredom with ADHD or autism can be a massive advantage. Because guess what? If you are complacent, you don't get better. I'm guessing you're never
Yeah.
complacent with
No, I am not. And that's why it's
right.
like
That's a
I think
massive
I'm a great
trait.
friend, but there are things that I do that make me a very challenging partner. And that is one of them.
Oh, me too. My wife yelled at me today earlier because I forgot to put some dish away or whatever the fuck it was, and I was like, I wanted to get to work early, so I decided to just shatter the dish under the under the. I didn't
No
shatter it.
longer a problem.
What I did was I took a tablecloth, placed it over the bedside table, and then hid the dish under the bedside table so that it was a non-existent thing. And then I got to work early and sent a couple of emails, and it was a great day at work.
Right.
But then when I get home, it's like, why'd you put the fucking dish under the thing? I'm like, how did you fucking know that? She's like, I know you.
It made sense at the time.
It did, right? That's the whole thing. All right, I want to streamline this right now because I love this so much. What, Kate, are you most proud of? Now, this cannot be like a sibling, it cannot be kids, it cannot be your husband.
Sure.
What within yourself are you most proud of?
Um, I think embracing the justice seeking component that exists within me, right? Like that's what drives, it's like doing things not only correctly, but right, making
Wow,
sure,
I love that.
it's why I minored in philosophy and it's why I was just like, I need rules, I need some sort of structure and code, right? Like a man's got to have a code. And, um, I think that I believe, especially since my diagnosis, if I do something that somebody doesn't like, I can live with it because I do what I think is the right thing to do
Okay.
all the time.
So I'm gonna push back on that slightly and say, not I think I know. What within you are you most proud of? And own it.
Um, I lit my career on fire because I worked for a real serious bad guy.
Okay,
Yep.
that's awesome.
Thanks.
That's so wow.
A
We're gonna
career
have
I
to
really liked and wanted.
we're gonna have to do
Um,
a part two on that. But
yep.
so you explain that a little bit. You actually, what did you do there exactly? Like that's
Um,
oh, that is
I
so fucking cool.
I walked away from a good job and litigated against one of the biggest companies on the planet.
That's it. See, that is what you did that. You did that. No one else did that but you. That pumps me the fuck up. I'm sorry. Like
And
this
I
is
don't I
why
don't think anybody else could have. If, in terms of things that are a good idea, would I recommend it to somebody else? Probably not.
right.
And
But you could do it.
I knew I had to. That was more important, is that I thought about, what walking away would look like. And I knew I was not going to be able to live with myself, that it would be one of those browser tabs that churned all the time.
Right.
That
Right.
I'd be thinking I didn't fight the good fight. I didn't stand up for myself. I didn't, advocate for other people that were going to be in that situation after me. And I knew that if I had a chance at sleeping, again, I needed to stand up for myself, say what was right, say what happened to me.
So you just described in the last hour what neurodivergence actually, in my opinion, is you struggled early, you weren't diagnosed until late, you still dogged it to death. Then all of a sudden, what you're most proud of is something that no one else could do but you.
Yeah, and the irony there is,
Take some pride in that.
yeah, I'm trying. I'm trying. It's a double-edged sword because I also walked, there were elements of that experience where what was hard about that is, there were moments where I felt like the one right tool at that role, where I got
Right,
to unmask and walk into a room and get what I have been longing for my whole career, which was assumed competence,
right,
right?
right.
That things came out of my mouth and people would be like, they're probably true because Kate is saying them,
That
right?
oh, it's a good, great compliment.
And I had that. So what was it worth? So much. So much that I looked the other way when red flags were happening. So much that I started receiving feedback that was cruel and sort of manipulative. And I took it on because I thought I had reached this milestone. I
Right,
thought I had what I needed.
you did, you did, because what you needed was to prove yourself to other people, and you did that because you didn't give a shit.
And then I lit it on fire.
Exactly.
Yep.
That fades out nicely into the fire background. But but no, but that's kind of the whole. God, I'm so passionate about this because I feel like people think they're so broken when hearing your story is like, I just went out and fucking did it. I just went out and did it. I didn't care about like what anyone else said. Yeah, it hurts when people in middle school make fun of you or people in high school are saying this and that and the other, but you won a tennis match with a fucking doubles partner and then had her go behind your back, so fuck her. And then and then the next thing you know, you have a loving husband and kids. And now you're massively successful. So how did the ADHD brain play into that? You just
I
said
think
everything a CEO does is
yeah,
what you just described. So
I think for
sorry,
a
I'm
while it was
intense.
this, right? And you're right. It was this transition of, being told I was incorrect or wrong. And then my first business persona, I had like a Brooks Brothers wardrobe and
Oh
it was like,
Jesus.
I had like a high masking persona that I described as like
Right.
my dad. Right. And then guess what? In this packaging, that doesn't work. Right. Like showing up as like the VP of sales at 21 and being like, why am I not taken seriously? This works so well when I see my dad do
Yeah.
it in front of a CEO. Like I've
Well,
been
I was gonna
taking
say,
notes and doing his notes, I'm like same outfit, posture, legs
get
crossed. What?
closer
Let me tell you
closer to the
about the
microphone.
critical
Sorry.
success factors, right? We need to tell you about the critical success factors of this situation, right? And I was dead serious with myself, and
Yeah.
I think that's the other change is like I'm a little bit less self-serious now,
Good. That's awesome. That
right? Like it's okay to fuck
I
up and it's a little funny.
yeah, it is. But like if you have the confidence to own your fuck ups and all that kind of stuff, guess what? That's an attractive trait. Like everyone wants to meet someone that's like, yeah, I fucked this up and ha ha ha.
Right?
Like that's an
Yeah.
attractive trait. But so many ADHD people don't do that because they're scared that someone else will say, you know what, that's really bad, whatever. When I get told that, I'm like, yeah, it is really bad. Fuck you. We're going to dinner. Like that's like
Yeah.
that's
And I like to
uh
think there's a fragility to it too, right? Like a lot depending on where you are in your ADHD journey, you've
yeah,
received
true.
so much critical feedback that you may not be in the position to receive more,
Correct. Okay. All right. Fair
right?
enough.
Um,
Sorry, I got a little bit too jacked up right there. But
right.
that's one of my flaws is I do get overly pumped up when I talk to someone that I really love that I know is fucking amazing, and then I just go off on tangents and all this kind of stuff. But the problem is that my friends tell me that. My friends tell me that. And I'm like, would you rather be me be someone else? Or would you rather me try to motivate and encourage all
Yep.
day, every fucking day? So if I go over the top, I go over the top. But would you rather me not do anything? Or do you want me to go over the top? That's
Right.
it. Which is what you did in that scenario. Goddamn
Well, there
Kate.
was nowhere to go but there, right?
Right,
That's
right.
the thing. Once
Th-
once you
th-
have
th-
those rules for yourself, what are you gonna do? Walk away?
yeah, unbelievable. All right, Kate, but if you had any piece of advice to give to any neurodivergent person, what would it be?
Radical self-acceptance.
Fuck yes. Kate, we're gonna do a part two, probably tomorrow because I can't talk to you enough. So, anyways,
Sure.
love you. Love how
Yeah.
spark out. Let's go.